Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of What You Don't See About Me as a Parent. Today we're diving into something that has been on my heart for a long time. The quiet victories, the unseen battles, the small moments that nobody applauds, but that carry so much weight. This episode is called The Weight of the Invisible Parenting Wins. Now let me prepare you. Some of what I'm going to say may be uncomfortable because I'm not only going to talk about our children, I'm going to talk about us, about you as a parent, about me as a parent, about the work we put in every single day, and how often we don't give ourselves enough credit for it. We celebrate when our children say their first words, or when they learn to tie their shoelaces, or when they manage a meltdown better than before. Those are beautiful milestones, but behind each of those, there is another layer that really gets recognized. The hours of persistence, the boundaries you held when you felt like caving, the conversations you had with teachers and therapists, the patience you dug out of your soul when you thought you had nothing left. Those are the invisible wins, and I want to bring them into the light today. Every time you tell your child no, not out of cruelty, but because you are teaching them structure, you are shaping their future. Every time you refuse to baby them when you know they can do something themselves, you are building their independence. And yes, I know how hard that is. Have sat through those tears, have felt the guilt in my chest like a knife, have cried in the bathroom after holding firm, but I also know the reward on the other side. You see, boundaries are exhausting for parents because they are rarely applauded. People see the tantrum in the shop. They don't see the quiet resilience of the parent who refuses to hand over the chocolate bar just to stop the screaming. They see the slammed door, not the determination of the parent who calmly enforces the consequence. That, my friend, is an invisible win. And then there's advocacy. Every phone call to a school, every email to a service provider, every fight to get your child what they need, those are parenting wins. They may not feel like it in the moment because advocacy can feel like banging your head against a wall. But every time you show up for your child in a meeting, every time you correct someone who underestimates them, you are stacking invisible bricks that will hold up your child's future. Don't ever underestimate the power of that. Sometimes the system changes slowly, sometimes it doesn't seem to change at all, but your presence teaches your child something profound, that they are worth fighting for. And here is something I want to highlight, because we parents don't talk about this enough. Sometimes the invisible win is you taking care of yourself. When I look back on my own journey, one of the best things I ever did for myself was to take one night a month with two friends. We'd go out for dinner, and here's the rule. No talking about the children, no talking about meltdowns, no talking about schools, no talking about therapies, just us, laughter, food, friendship. For a few hours, I wasn't mom or a teacher. I was just Shireen. And I can't tell you how much that refilled me. That one evening gave me strength for weeks ahead. Or take those bubble baths my husband Ike would run for me. I would sink into that tub, sometimes with tears rolling down my face, sometimes with music playing, and for those moments, I could breathe. That was a win, not because it solved anything overnight, but because it gave me the energy to keep going. Even the rare holidays we managed, when my mom would take the kids so I could get away, those were lifelines. Even now, looking back, I see how crucial those breaks were. Because parents, listen, you cannot pour from an empty cup. If you don't step back and refill, you will burn out. And then, who is left to carry the weight of your child? So, yes, your night out with friends is a win. Your walk in the park alone is a win. Your decision to book that holiday, even if it feels indulgent, is a win because it keeps you in the fight. The reason I call them invisible is because the world doesn't applaud them. Nobody claps for the parent who holds their boundary at bedtime. Nobody praises the mom who quietly rearranges her life so that she can attend every appointment. Nobody sees the dad who works long hours and still shows up at the IEP meeting, exhausted but determined. And sometimes we ourselves don't see them. We are too focused on what isn't working, what's still hard, what progress hasn't been made yet. But today, I want to challenge you to stop and notice, because these invisible wins are what's shaping your child's future, and they're shaping you too. And let me also bring in the faith piece, because you know I can't separate that from my journey. Sometimes the invisible win is spiritual. It's the prayer you whisper at 2 a.m. when you don't know what else to do. It's the strength God gives you to try again tomorrow when today felt impossible. It's the reminder that He sees what nobody else sees. Every tear, every late night, every small act of faithfulness. Galatians say, "Do not get weary in doing good, for in due season you will reap if you do not give up." That is parenting in one verse. The invisible wins may not be recognized now, but they are seeds being planted, and one day you will reap a harvest. So, in today's episode, we're going to explore these invisible wins in depth. The wins of boundaries held when your heart wanted to cave. The wins of advocacy in systems that often feel immovable. The wins of self care that keep you standing. The wins of faith that remind you your labor is not in vain. And the wins of legacy, the long term impact these invisible choices will have on your child, your family, and even yourself. Because parenting is not just about raising our children, it's about growing ourselves. And I want you, by the end of this episode, to walk away not only seeing your child's progress differently, but also valuing your own resilience in a whole new light. So let's dive in. And you know, one of the hardest invisible wins is holding the line with boundaries. Because let's be honest, sometimes it feels easier to give in. You are tired. You've had a long day. Maybe you're juggling work and appointments, and then your child is melting down because you said no to something. In that moment, every fiber of your body is screaming, just give it to them so the noise will stop. And sometimes you do. I've done it. I've caved. And I don't beat myself up for that anymore because I know I am human. And here's the win: the times when you don't cave, The times when you stand firm, even with your heart breaking, even with tears rolling down your child's face, even with the judgmental stares of strangers in the shop. Those are wins, parents. Not because it feels good, it doesn't, but because you're teaching your child something priceless, that boundaries exist and that they can survive disappointment. And let me tell you something, those invisible wins add up. The bedtime you held firm on last night, that might be the reason your child can regulate enough to get through school tomorrow. The meal time where you refused to cook 3 different dinners and made them eat what was on the table, that's the foundation for your child learning to adapt. The confidence you enforced after the outburst, that's teaching accountability. Now, let's move on to advocacy, which is another invisible win. And goodness, does it take strength. If you have ever sat in a meeting with professionals, teachers, therapists, doctors, and felt like you were speaking another language from everyone else, you know what I mean. You're sitting there and they're all using their jargon, and you're thinking, but you don't see my child the way I do. And then you speak up. You ask the hard questions. You insist on what your child needs, even when your voice is shaking. That is a win. Because advocacy is not about shouting the loudest. It's about persistence. It's about being the one person in the room who refuses to let your child be overlooked. And sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes you leave those meetings drained, wondering if you made any difference at all. But trust me, you did. Every email you write, every phone call you make, every form you fill, every uncomfortable conversation you push through, those are bricks in a wall of support that you are building for your child's future. And here's something else. The advocacy also teaches your child. They might not understand it at the time, but they see you fighting. They see you showing up. They see you refusing to back down. And one day, when they're older, they'll know my parent fought for me. That's legacy. That's dignity. That's love made visible through action. But let's be real here. Holding boundaries and advocating is exhausting. It drains you in ways people who haven't walked this road cannot fully understand. And that's why I call them invisible wins. Because nobody sees the toll it takes. Nobody claps when you leave that meeting emotionally bruised. Nobody applauds when you quietly hold a consequence at home while your child rages. But those are the moments where you're doing some of the hardest, most important work you'll ever do. And if nobody has told you this today, let me be the first. I see you. I see the quiet strength it takes to keep showing up. I see the invisible wins that you stack one on top of the other every single day. And I want to slow down here because I don't think parents give themselves enough credit for these moments. You see, people on the outside often only notice the big things. They'll say, "Oh wow, she's finally talking," or "Oh, he can tie his shoelaces now," or "She's in mainstream class now, that's amazing." And yes, They are big wins and they deserve to be celebrated. But what they don't see are the years of invisible parenting wins that got you there. Nobody saw the 100 times you gently placed a spoon back in your child's hand when they refused to feed themselves. Nobody saw the endless evenings you calmly reminded them to brush their teeth, even while they screamed. Nobody saw the hours you spent practicing hello and goodbye at the door until one day, finally, they said it without a prompt. Those were your wins as much as they were your child. And you know what? I think sometimes we wait for the world to validate us. We wait for someone else to clap for us, to notice. But parenting a child with autism or additional needs means a lot of your victories will go unseen, which is why I tell parents all the time, you have to clap for yourself. You have to stop, take a breath, and say, I did that. Think about the last time you held a boundary when everything in you wanted to give in. That was not a small thing. That was a huge thing. It meant you choose your child's long term growth over your own short term comfort. And that is love. That is sacrifice. That is parenting at its deepest level. I'll never forget one mother I worked with. She had a son who would scream every night for her to sit in his room until he fell asleep. She told me, Shireen, I can't do it anymore. I'm exhausted. So I said to her, okay, what if you just sit outside the door instead? You are still there, but you're teaching him that he can fall asleep without you in the room. The first night he screamed for an hour. The second night, 40 minutes. The third night, 20 minutes. By the end of the week, he was asleep in 15 minutes without her in the room. She came back to me with tears in her eyes and said, I didn't think I could do it, but I did. That was a win, not just for her son, but for her, because she proved to herself that she could hold firm in love. And that's what I want parents to hear today. Your wins are not only about your children's milestones. Your wins are about the ways you grow too. Every time you write that email you have been dreading, every time you push through another meeting where people dismissed you, every time you sit through a meltdown without shouting, even though your nerves are on fire, every time you show up when you feel like you have nothing left to give. Those are wins. Invisible, quiet, soul deep wins. Let me talk a moment about advocacy because this one is heavy. Advocacy can feel like another full-time job. The paperwork, the phone calls, the meetings, the letters, it can be overwhelming and it is so easy to feel like you're not making progress. But here's the truth. Every time you speak up, you're changing the atmosphere around your child. You're planting seeds that will bear fruit later. You may not see it right away, but you are paving the road. And sometimes those small advocacy wins are what make the big changes possible. Maybe you push for an aide in the classroom. Maybe you fought for speech therapy hours. Maybe you got the school to agree to visual timetables. Maybe you secure respite care even just one day a week. Those things don't come easy. They come because you refuse to stay quiet. And yes, it's exhausting. Yes, you leave some meetings shaking. Yes, you sometimes cry in the car afterwards. But don't you dare minimize what you just did. That was a win. That was you saying, my child matters. And even if no one else in that room thanked you for it, let me thank you now. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being relentless. Thank you for proving that love is louder than bureaucracy. Now, let me be honest with you. Advocacy and boundaries don't just cost energy, they also cost emotionally. They can make you feel guilty. They can make you doubt yourself. You can walk away thinking, was I too harsh? Did I fight too hard? Did I make a fool of myself? But listen, parents, the fact that you even ask those questions proves your heart is in the right place. Because a parent who doesn't care never asks those questions. A parent who doesn't care never shows up to fight at all. So let me free you from some of that guilt. You are going through enough. You are doing better than enough. And I'll say something that may not be popular, but it's true. You are allowed to celebrate yourself. You are allowed to say, I am proud of me. Because so much of this journey is about survival. And if you don't give yourself credit, you'll run yourself into the ground. I remember when I started giving myself permission to celebrate my own wins. It changed something in me. It gave me fuel. It reminded me that I wasn't just reacting to crisis all day, every day. I was building something. I was shaping a foundation, and you are too. So maybe tonight, when you sit down after a long day, I want you to pause and name one invisible win you had today. Maybe it's that you didn't shout. Maybe it's that you made that phone call. Maybe it's that you got through dinner without giving in. Maybe it's that you simply kept going when you felt like quitting. Whatever it is, name it, celebrate it, and let it remind you that you are doing one of the hardest jobs in the world and you are doing it well. Because parents, these invisible wins, they are not invisible to God. They are not invisible to your children, even if they don't say it. And they are not invisible to me. I see you, I honor you, and I want you to know that your effort, your sacrifice, your persistence, they matter. Now, let me shift gears a little because celebrating parenting wins isn't just about what you do for your child, it's also about what you do for yourself. This is where a lot of parents struggle, and I understand why. When you're raising a child with additional needs, you feel like every ounce of energy has to go into them. You feel like if you take even one step back, you're failing. But I want to tell you something that might change the way you see this. Every moment you take to care for yourself is also a win for your child. Let me explain. When you're running on empty, when you're drained and burned out, you can't give your best. You may be physically present, but your patience is gone. Your creativity is gone. Your resilience is gone. And your child feels that. They may not be able to articulate it, but they know when you're running on fumes. But when you take the time, even small amounts of time, To fill yourself back up, you're giving your child the gift of a healthier, calmer, stronger parent. That's not selfish, that's wise. I remember in the early years, my husband and I would sometimes plan little breaks. Maybe it was a weekend away, maybe just a night at a hotel. We would leave the kids with my mother, and for those 2 days, we weren't just parents. We were us again. We could laugh, talk, eat a meal without interruption, walk without carrying a bag of sensory toys. And when we came back, yes, life was still hard, but we were different. We had been filled back up. And I want to tell you something personal. My husband used to set up bubble baths for me at night when he saw I was breaking down. He would light a candle, put on some music, and just give me the space to breathe. It wasn't a grand holiday, it wasn't expensive, but those moments of self care kept me going. Parents, hear me. You deserve those wins. They are not extras, they are essential. Even now, when I look back, those breaks didn't just save our marriage, they saved our parenting. Because the truth is, when you're exhausted, you don't just lose your patience with your child, you lose your patience with each other. You start snapping, resenting, shutting down. And that's why I say, investing in your own rest is part of the win. And it doesn't always have to be a holiday. Sometimes it's as simple as a night out with friends. For me, that one night a month with my two friends was gold. We would go for dinner, and there was one rule: no talk about kids. We laughed, we talked about our lives, our dreams, the silly things happening in the world. And for those few hours, I wasn't just the mom of a child with autism. I was Shireen, and that mattered. Parents, I want you to find your version of that. Maybe it's a book club, maybe it's a long walk, maybe it's playing football once a week, maybe it's music or painting or soaking in a bubble bath, whatever it is. Claim it as part of your parenting win, because it takes courage to carve out space for yourself when everything in you feels guilty for stepping away. And let me talk about guilt for a moment, because I know it well. The guilt of leaving your child with someone else, the guilt of saying no, the guilt of enjoying yourself while knowing your child is at home struggling. That guilt will eat you alive if you let it. But here's what I've learned: guilt is not a guide, it's a weight. And if you let it drive you, it will drive you straight into burnout. So instead of listening to guilt, listen to truth. And the truth is, your child needs you whole. Your child needs you restored. Your child needs you alive and well. That means you need to take care of yourself. I'll never forget a simple moment that taught me this. One night I came home so drained I could barely speak. My daughter looked at me and said, "Mommy, you're tired." I nodded. And she said, "You should rest." Out of the mouth of my child came the truth. She didn't want me to run myself to the ground. She wanted me well. That hit me like a brick, because I realized even my child knows I need rest. So parents, please hear me. Your self-care is not indulgence. It's stewardship. It is you taking care of the vessel that God has chosen to raise this child. And let's make this practical. Think of 3 small things you can do this week that are just for you. It could be a quiet cup of tea before the house wakes up. It could be asking your partner or a family member to take the kids for an hour while you rest. It could be writing in a journal, praying, going for a swim, watching a show that makes you laugh. None of these things are small when you are in survival mode. They are lifelines. And when you do them, I want you to name them as wins. Just as you celebrate your child for saying a new word or trying a new food, celebrate yourself for taking a nap, for saying no, for going to dinner with a friend, because those are victories too. One of the greatest lessons I've learned is that resilience is built in the balance between giving and receiving, between pouring out and filling back up. If you never stop to refill, you will break. But if you choose to refill, even in small ways, you will last the distance. And let me add one more layer here: faith. For me, prayer and worship were not just spiritual practices, they were survival strategies. In my lowest moments, when I felt completely invisible, I would pray. I would cry out, and somehow strength would return. That was my soul care, my anchor. And I believe every parent needs something that grounds them, whether it's faith, meditation, community, or something else. So let me say it again, loud and clear. When you take care of yourself, you are winning. Here's the truth I wish more parents heard. Success in parenting isn't only about what your child can do, it's also about what you can do, what you choose to do, and how you changed along the way. Let's pause on that, because too often parents only measure progress by their child's milestones. Did they speak? Did they write? Did they go a day without a meltdown? Did they make a friend? And yes, those things matter. But if you only measure success through your child, you will miss the very real victories that happen inside of you as a parent. Success is you holding a boundary even when your heart is breaking. Success is you saying no when you used to give in out of guilt. Success is you sitting in the storm of your child's meltdown and not running, not hiding, not collapsing, but staying steady. Success is you advocating at school when everything in you wants to shrink back because you're tired of fighting. That is victory. That is progress. And those are the wins you need to celebrate. I want you to imagine for a moment. Your child may not see the battle that happened inside of you when you held firm. But that doesn't mean it didn't count. It counted. Every time you choose to do the harder thing instead of the easier thing, you're building strength in yourself and laying down bricks for your child's future. I remember one time a parent I was mentoring said, "But I didn't do anything today. He still melted down. He still refused to work." I looked at her and said, "But did you yell?" She paused. "No." I said, "That's a win. You stayed calm when you would have lost it before. That's not nothing. That's growth." See, we are so quick to dismiss our own progress because it doesn't look like the glossy success we imagine. But parenting, especially parenting a child with additional needs, isn't glossy. It's raw. It's messy. It's daily grit. And when you choose consistency over comfort, when you choose growth over guilt, when you choose presence over escape, that is a win. That deserves recognition. Let me be practical here. How do you measure your wins as a parent? 1. By your follow through. Did you follow through on a boundary today that you would have let slide last week? That's growth. 2. By your response. Did you take one deep breath before answering instead of snapping right away? That's growth. 3. By your advocacy. Did you send that email? Make that call? Show up to that meeting when you felt like hiding? That's growth. 4. By your self-awareness. Did you notice your own triggers today? Did you step away for a moment instead of blowing up? That's growth. And 5. By your endurance. Did you face another hard day and still wake up ready to try again? That's growth. Parents, these are not small things. These are life-changing things. And let's be clear, celebrating your parenting win does not mean you ignore the struggles. It means you choose to see yourself as part of the story, not just a background character. You matter in this journey. Your effort matters. Your growth matters. Here's something else. Success is not perfection. I'll be the first to admit I've failed many times. Have given in when I shouldn't. Have lost my temper. Have cried in the bathroom because I didn't know if I could go on. But you know what? I got up. I kept going. I tried again. And that is what success looks like. Not never failing, but always rising. Parents, I want you to give yourself credit for the courage it takes just to keep showing up. Because let's be honest, there are days when showing up feels impossible. Days when you are so drained that just getting your child dressed feels like climbing a mountain. But you did it. You got through the day. You survived. And survival is also a win. And let's not forget the invisible wins, the ones no one else sees. Like the moment you swallow your own tears so your child doesn't carry your stress. Like the time you spend researching strategies late at night while everyone else is asleep. Like the patience it takes to try the same strategy for the 100th time, knowing it might fail again. Those invisible wins are the backbone of your parenting journey. Let me tell you something important. No one is going to throw you a party for these wins. The world doesn't clap when you hold your boundary or when you advocate at school. But you must learn to clap for yourself. You must learn to say, I did that. I held the line. I stayed calm. I tried again. That's not pride. That's survival. That's encouragement. Finally, one of the greatest invisible wins is faith. Because when you pray for your child, when you cry out to God for strength, when you trust Him with their future, even when everything looks uncertain, that is a victory in itself. Faith doesn't always remove the struggle, but it reframes it. It turns exhaustion into offering. It reminds you that you are not carrying this load alone. Every whispered prayer in the night, every moment you lift your eyes and say, God, I can't, but you can. Those are wins the world will never see, but heaven records every one of them. Galatians 6 verse 9 tells us, let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And parents, that is you. You are sowing seeds even when it feels thankless. You are laying bricks even when nobody notices. And one day you will see the harvest of your invisible wins. And if you're a parent of faith, let me add this. Every time you hold your ground, you are not just doing it in your own strength. God sees you. God honors your effort. Every whispered prayer, every moment of weakness, every boundary you hold, heaven counts it even if hurt doesn't. Sometimes your only reward will be the quiet voice of God saying, "Well done, keep going, I see you." Parents, hear me. Your wins are not just your child's progress, they are in yours. And when you recognize that, when you learn to measure your growth alongside your child's, something shifts. You stop living in despair. You stop dismissing yourself. You start to see that even in the hardest seasons, you are growing, you are winning, you are becoming stronger. So the next time you're tempted to say, "I'm not doing enough," I want you to stop. Look back. See how far you've come. Remember what used to break you that now barely shakes you. Remember the things that used to feel impossible that now feel routine. Remember the nights you thought you wouldn't survive, but you're still here. That's victory. That's your win. Because parenting wins aren't only measured in your child's voice or independence, they are measured in your resilience, your faith, your persistence, your refusal to give up. And you, parent, are winning more than you know. So today, if you're feeling unseen, unheard, uncelebrated, let me remind you, you are winning. Your wins may not trend on social media. They may not be applauded by neighbors or even recognized family, but they are real. They are shaping your child's life, and they are shaping you into a stronger, wiser, more compassionate parent. So take a moment right now to breathe, to look back, and to celebrate the invisible wins you have already achieved. And trust that every boundary, every prayer, every sacrifice is not wasted. Because parenting isn't just about the visible milestones, it's about the unseen victories that build the foundation for everything to come. As we close this episode, I want to pause with you, not as a teacher, not even as a mother of a now young adult who has walked this road, but as another human being who knows what it feels like to live unseen. Parenting, especially parenting a child with additional needs, is often described in terms of sacrifice. And yes, sacrifice is real, but what is missed is that sacrifice isn't just about giving things up. It's about pouring yourself into something eternal. Every invisible win, every moment of consistency, every small choice to love with strength instead of convenience, that is eternal work. The world won't always thank you. Your child may not recognize it in the moment. Sometimes even your spouse or family may not notice, but you notice and God notices. I often think about this. Parenting is not a sprint. It's not even a marathon. It is more like tending a garden that you may never fully see bloom in your lifetime. You plant seeds of patience when you choose not to yell. You plant seeds of resilience when you hold that boundary. You plant seeds of courage when you advocate in the meeting. You plant seeds of compassion when you choose to forgive yourself after a hard day. And those seeds, watered with tears, with exhaustion, with faith, grow quietly on the ground. You don't see the roots forming. You don't feel the stems pushing upward. But one day, years later, you wake up and realize your child is doing something you once thought was impossible. That's the long view. And it is the long view that gives meaning to these invisible parenting wins. One of the most important things I want parents to take away from this episode is permission. Permission to celebrate yourself. You don't need a school report to validate you. You don't need your child to give a perfect thank you to make it real. You don't need applause from others who have no idea what this life costs you. You can celebrate yourself because you know the truth. You know how hard it was to hold firm on that bedtime. You know the weight of the tears you wiped in private after refusing to give in. You know the courage it took to sit in that room and speak up for your child when every voice around you seemed louder. Celebrate that. Name that. Thank God for it. Because when you do, you shift the culture of parenting away from shame and towards resilience. You model for your child what it looks like to take pride in perseverance, not perfection. For me, the invisible wins are not just about parenting, they're about faith. Every time I choose to trust God's promises when everything in front of me said failure, that was an invisible win. Every time I prayed through tears, asking for strength to hold on one more day, that was an invisible win. Every time I believed, even faintly, that God had a plan for my child's life, that was a win. Faith reframes the invisible. Faith says you are not forgotten. Faith reminds us that every act of love, no matter how hidden, has eternal weight. And here is something we rarely admit out loud. These invisible wins are not just shaping our children, they are shaping us. I am not the same woman I was when my daughter was first diagnosed. I am stronger. I am softer. I am bolder. I am more patient. And I am far more dependent on God. And I know the same is true for you. Because every invisible wind chisels away at the parts of us that are impatient, prideful, or fearful. Every invisible wind calls us into growth, into humility, into courage. This is why I say the small wins of parenting are not just survival, they are sanctification. They are transforming us into parents who reflect love in action, not just in words. So, as I close, I want to speak directly to you, the parent listening right now. You may feel exhausted. You may feel unseen. You may feel like none of it matters, but it does. It matters when you set the alarm and wake up early to prepare for the day, even though you had almost no sleep the night before. It matters when you take deep breaths instead of raising your voice. It matters when you sit with your child in their storm instead of abandoning them to it. It matters when you let yourself laugh even in the heaviness. It matters when you whisper a prayer in the middle of a chaos. It all matters. And finally, rest. Parents, listen to me. You cannot keep pouring without receiving. You cannot keep running without stopping. Rest is not selfish. It is not lazy. It is holy. Take the night out with friends. Take the bubble bath. Take the walk alone. Take the trip with your spouse. Take the nap. Rest is not the absence of work. It is the fuel that makes the work possible. Rest is God's reminder that you are not Him, that the world does not fall apart if you stop for a moment, that you can trust Him to hold what you cannot. So please, for your sake and for your child's, claim the invisible win of rest. The weight of invisible parenting wins is heavy, but it is also holy. So keep going, keep celebrating, keep trusting, and when you feel like nobody sees you, remember, God does and I do. You are not invisible. Your wins are not invisible. And one day, the fruit of your labor will speak louder than the silence you feel today.